I gave a talk about my book, my new book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America. And I think that the one thing that I had this conversation with a couple of people during Q&A afterwards that a lot of people just really struggle with is that we were born into, and by we, I mean, anybody born in the United States after 1870, right? So, which is obviously none of those people are still alive. But basically, we were all born into a country that we were told was a representative democratic republic, but in fact has been a constitutional monarchy. That is to say, the Supreme Court have set themselves up in a role traditionally held by kings, queens, and other nobles in monarchical systems and kingdoms. And, we elect some officials who do some things, but basically at the end of the day, the people who actually control the power, the people who actually define the fate and future, the warp and woof of and weave of America are 9 people who are not elected and who serve for life and perform the functions of royalty. That we're not a democratic republic. We're a constitutional monarchy, and the monarchs are these 9 people on the Supreme Court. And it's like people keep saying, but, somebody's got to decide. Well, yeah, I mean, this was, the letter to Jefferson, if you don't think the Supreme Court should be able to strike down laws as being unconstitutional or write doctrines from whole cloth. I mean, the Supreme Court literally made up separate but equal with Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896. Or 1898. And then they undid what they made up with Brown versus Board of Education in 1954. They made up the idea that corporations are persons. They literally created it out of whole cloth. They made up the idea that money is the same thing as speech, knocked down all kinds of laws that have been passed by we the people. The Supreme Court, in Jefferson's words, has become the most despotic branch. And people are still, but we really need to have that Supreme Court there in case some really unconstitutional legislation gets passed. Well, hey, that's happened a million times in the past. Maybe not a million, but and the court hasn't saved us. I mean, the court has just made things worse over the years in many regards. The question at the end of the day is, do you believe in monarchy? In other words, do you believe that we can't really trust the mob? The majority, the rabble, as John Adams used to refer to average voting people, average working people? Do we trust democracy, or do we trust monarchy? Do we believe that we have to have 9 people who are wiser than all the rest of us who sit in judgment over all this stuff?